In this clip, we look at how management steps, team roles, and types of governance correspond with the Octicon faculties. It's an important topic because many of the things we plan to do fail, and often the reason is that we don't know how to manage ourselves and others. Let's look at managing people first. It's made up of 5 steps. Each step tends to correspond with one or more faculties. Planning is about deciding in advance what we want to do, why, how, when, where, with whom and with what. So, to plan, we need to observe, differentiate and then interpret data. Organising is developing a structure of roles by which people can put our plans into action. That requires reflecting to come up with a sound structure. Staffing is placing and keeping the right people in the right jobs at the right time. In effect, we organise and staff to give our plans expression. Directing is helping people to carry out their roles effectively and efficiently, what the faculties of directing and application are all about. And finally, controlling is ensuring that our plans progress and that any necessary changes are made, starting the process of planning again. As we act, we observe and feed back the results. So those are the 5 steps going in a figure of 8. Additionally, there are other aspects of the management process which can be identified on the Octicon. We need to establish rules and regulations to guide decision making, which is part of planning, and we need to do brainstorming, which is the continuing process of creating new ideas. We also need to have a process of monitoring in place to check how everything is going, which is part of control, whereas evaluation is the external process of judging the outcome of our work. All these influence the management process. We can also map out what can be called degrees of understanding related to the steps, starting with input of data, generating information, creating knowledge, and hopefully implementing with wisdom. Now let's take the look at team working. Since we all have different skills and personalities, it can be very helpful to understand these and work together in teams when managing something. Here is one way of classifying team roles, using 2 axes that have been proposed by Margarison and McCann. One axis covers our behaviour, controlling and exploring, and the other covers role preferences, advising and organising. Now let's look at the 8 team roles. Reporter advisors like to obtain and disseminate information. Upholder maintainers like to ensure the standards and processes are upheld. Controllers and inspectors like to check and audit the working of systems. Concluder producers like to operate established systems and practices on a regular basis. Thruster organisers like to establish and implement ways of making things work. Assessor developers like to assess and test the applicability of new approaches. Explorer promoters like to search for and persuade others of new opportunities. Creator innovators like to create and experiment with new ideas. And finally, there is the role of linking, which can be placed at the centre. There are other names for these roles based on work of Belbin and Pretty, and here they are. Note that these 8 types of team person were key to helping to define the 8 faculties which I have identified on the outside of the Octicon. Now let's move on to governance. Whether in the context of a nation, business or a family, as psychologist Dr. Hans Eysenck pioneered studies on politics and personality and came up with 2 spectra that cover how we are governed or lead others. The democratic-autocratic spectrum covers the way things are done, from the dictatorial non-consultative approach through to the participative hands-off approach. The conservative radical spectrum covers the traditional intellectual keep it the way it was viewpoint through to the let's change everything, out with the old and in with the new reactionary approach. These seem to fit the main faculties as shown. In between the spectra I have put what I think is the way politicians or parents get nations or children to go along with their ideas. These correspond to the Octicon's outer linking faculties. So, in this clip we have covered management, team roles and governance. All these ideas are equally applicable to running nations, institutions, businesses or a family. There is no one best step, role or way, and we need them all at different times and in different situations.